of success in your spiritual quest for enlightenment, or to become born again, or to become at one with God, as Swedenborg describes. This book deals with spiritual hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is a method or theory of interpretation. However, it gets a little more specific in this book by Henry Corbin, Swedenborg and Esoteric Islam. Here, hermeneutics means a sense of spiritual interpretation using correspondences, using the knowledge that everything here in the world corresponds to a higher, more subtle spiritual reality, instead of a more obvious approach and a more literal interpretation. Also, the book deals with the concept of ipseity, which is the concept of knowing that you exist separate from the sense of everyone else and separate from the sense of God, knowing that you have your own existence. Also, this book deals with esoteric knowledge, which is knowledge that is not in common with everybody, knowledge that is difficult to understand and only understood by a few. This makes this work difficult, especially when this material is new to me, and thus opens up the way for possible errors, which I apologize for. Exoteric is the opposite of esoteric. Exoteric means obvious to everyone and common knowledge. Well, so now that I talked about some of the concepts that we're going to explore, let's explore the book itself. Swedenborg and Esoteric Islam by Henry Corbin. Let's go to page 45. About a quarter of the way down the page, each of these heavens is differentiated into innumerable communities, each of these in turn into innumerable individuals who, through their harmony, constitute, as it were, a person. And all of these communities together form a single person. The communities result spontaneously from affinities of intelligence and love, just as some are differentiated from others according to the differences of their love and their faith. These differences are so innumerable that even the most general cannot be listed. Each angel and each community are, respectively, an image of the universal heaven, something like a small heaven. Later on page 45, by this law of interiority, it is necessary to understand that the phases of time and the places of space are interior states of man as well. Swedenborg mentioned this frequently, and it must always be remembered. Now, let's go to page 47 of Swedenborg and Esoteric Islam by Henry Corbin. For the more we are immersed in the things of this world, the more the things that relate to the celestial light appear to us paradoxically like darkness and emptiness, though inversely all that appears only in the light of this world constitutes thick darkness for the angels. Yet these two lights are, together, everything that comprises our intelligence while our present life passes. Later on page 47, spiritual light and heat have as their opposites the infernal darkness and cold, inhabited by the infernal spirits who breathe only hatred and violence, fury and negation, tending to the destruction of the universe, to the point that if their rage were not continually combated and repelled by the beings of the spiritual world, the entire human race would perish, unconscious of the secret of its history. Now, let's go to page 48. Similarly, the heat is perceived by angelic sensitivity as heat, but there is love in it because it derives from love. Love is therefore called spiritual heat and constitutes the heat of a person's life, just as intelligence is called spiritual light and constitutes the light of a person's life. From this fundamental correspondence, all the rest is derived. Now, let's go to page 51 of Swedenborg and Esoteric Islam by Henry Corbin. Swedenborg is explicit. The Lord does not conceal himself, but the evil makes it appear as though he concealed himself, as though he had no existence. Now let's go to page 53. For Swedenborg's heaven, as well as his vision of hierohistory, are vast enough to contain all religions. Now let's go to page 52. We have tried to sketch out in elusive lines the doctrine of correspondences, respecting which Swedenborg states that, although it is unknown in our time, it was regarded by very ancient humanity, the initial celestial humanity, as a true science, indeed as the preeminent science, the science of sciences, and it was so universally known that men wrote all of their books at that time in the language of correspondences. Similarly, their rituals and the ceremonies of their religion consisted solely of correspondences, and it is because they thought spiritually in this way about terrestrial things that they were in community with the angels of heaven. Now let's go to page 65, towards the bottom of the page. Among other things, the meaning of the incarnation has nothing to do with the idea of a redemption, a compensation, and atonement. It is essentially a combat, or rather, the continuation of a combat begun at the beginning of the ages. In addition, although he assumed the terrestrial human form only once in person, the Lord came each time an ecclesia was devastated. This coming of the Lord is the triumph that breaks the infernal assault which threatens to invade the world of spirits, and it is the possibility given once more to man